Howdy folks, welcome to Philbilly Outdoors and DIY. I'm Phil, and today I'm finally back with another project, or a continuation of a project I guess. I'm going to be making a leather butt pad for one of my guns here, one of my shotguns. So it had a plastic butt plate originally. I took it off years ago to try and make a DIY recoil pad, and of course now I can't find the original plastic butt plate. I think I said that right. So I'm going to make one out of leather. So come along and I'll show you what I'm working with here. Alright, so here you can see I've got my single shot shotgun here. I've got it taken down just so it's a little easier to work with. I don't have any sockets in the house, or I would have just taken the buttstock off, but got my piece of leather here that I'm going to use, my cutting mat. Over here I've got all my tools and stuff. If anybody happened to have watched my previous video on this gun, this is the one that I put sights on. You can see there. And you can see here I've added a sling swivel, or a stud, sorry, sling swivel stud. There it is. There's the words. There on the barrel. And then I've put one here in the buttstock. And the ones I used was this here. There it is. It just came as a kit. It came with the swivels, though I don't think I'm going to use these ones. I don't like the way it looks hanging off of the one on the barrel. But you can find those Brownells, Midway, I believe. I'm sure I ordered them from one of those places. So, but anyway, like I said, this is what I'm working with. So I'll get set up here and hopefully be able to show you guys what I'm doing. So here I've got the buttstock that I'm going to make the pad for, and I've got some blue painter's tape. And all I'm going to do is just take this tape and lay one or two pieces, however many it takes, to cover the entire end of the buttstock here, lay it on there, and then I'm just going to trim around here, and I'm also going to take that time to mark where the holes are. And I guess I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, so see there, I've got my tape on there and I've got it cut out, and I just poked, here we go, just poked the center of the holes just so I know where the centers are at. So now all I got to do is peel that off of there, set this to the side, and now I'm going to take my piece of leather and I can stick this on there. And let me zoom in a little bit here so you can, other way there. There we go. So you can halfway see what I'm doing. And then I'm just going to trace around this with a pen. And try and get marked on there where my holes need to be. Now I can pull this off of here. And that just rolled up on itself, but that's okay. So now, hopefully this light isn't washing too much of this out, but it looks like it might be. Now, don't mind all these other spots on here. I'm sure you can see over here I had a little accident with the bottle of leather dye, because I am going to dye this black. And of course I got it all over my fingers. Luckily it washed off my skin pretty easy, but yeah, it's probably going to stain my shirt and shorts, and that's going to be on my bench forever, but you know, whatever. Alright, so I'm going to get this cut out, and I'm actually going to go ahead and cut out a second one because I'm going to stack these up. That way it's a little bit thicker. So I'll do that and show you what that looks like. One thing I will add as I'm getting ready to cut this out here, whenever you cut something like this, you want to make sure you keep your knife as straight up and down as possible. You know, you can tilt it forward and back, but you don't want to be tilting it side to side because that'll throw off, you know, it'll be tilted and then it won't look right whenever you get it done. Now, you could make it slightly oversized and sand it to the line, and that would be alright, but I like to try and avoid that as much as possible. So, just one more little tip there to help you. Okie doke, so I've got both of these cut out, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one and use my rotary punch here, because I'm going to glue these together like this, but I'm going to put a smaller hole in the bottom piece for where the screw goes through, and then the top one I'm going to have a bigger hole for the head of the screw to kind of sit down in. So in this one I'm just going to try and do this on camera for you, mostly anyway. Make sure you get it in the middle there, and there's two. So now the screw should fit through there. Yeah, that's pretty decent. Alright. Okay. Anyhow, there's that one. And this one, since my rotary punch doesn't go that big, I'm going to use one of these punches. Now, this isn't quite big enough. Okay, there we go. Quite big enough for the head of the screw to fit down in. But once you tighten the screw down, it should sink down in pretty decent. So and there's two. So now, and I may come back in and take a little more out, I'm not sure yet, but that should be pretty close. So you can see, maybe you can see, it doesn't, you know, it doesn't sit quite down in there, but it sits down in there pretty decent. Like I said, when you tighten it down, it should be okay. If not, I can always come back in and take a little more leather out of there. But now what I'm going to do is glue these two together, and I will have a little sanding to do on the edges just because these don't quite match up exactly, and you know, of course it doesn't match exactly with the buttstock yet because of course I cut it with just a straight knife. You know, it's a little tough to make curves with that, but I will get these glued together and we'll be ready for the next step. Alright, so I've got these glued together now, and I went ahead and sanded around the edges. I just took it out to the garage and put it on my belt sander, which I don't really like doing a lot of times because it just produces a lot of dust and fibers in the air, but it's much quicker than hand sanding. So I've got this a fairly decent fit to the buttstock itself. So now all I'm going to do is go around the edges here, and I'm using this. This is broken because, well, I broke it. But this is just an edge beveling tool. I'm just going to go around the edges, front and back, and maybe just kind of knock down this, I don't know if you can see it if I get the right way, this feathery edge here that I got from sanding. And now I'm going to get my jar of water here. I'm going to wet the edge all the way around and use this little tool here and just kind of slick the edges, I guess is what they call it. I like to just use one of these foam paint brushes to wet the edge of the leather. Just dip it in just a little bit in the water, and then you can go right along the edge of your piece. And at least for me, it helps me control where exactly I put the water. I like to get this fairly wet, but you don't need it dripping wet. Just to where you can see a bit of a difference in color between where you've put the water and where you haven't. And then you just pick a groove in this tool here. And just run it back and forth fairly quickly. And you don't want to push real hard, you just want to, basically you're relying on the friction instead of pressure. But what you end up with, you can see there, I think, how it's kind of shiny versus this side that's not. It just makes it look a lot nicer. Alright, so now I think it's time to dye this piece of leather here. So I'm going to very carefully open up my thing of leather dye here. I'm using Phoebing's. This is just their regular stuff. This isn't the pro dye. Though this will be my first time dyeing leather. I do hear the pro dye is the way to go. So depending on how this works out for me, I'm going to have this all over my fingers again. I may try the pro dye in the future, so I'm not sure. We'll just see how it goes. But I think this step is pretty well self-explanatory. Just kind of take one of these daubers here and just go around and put the dye on the leather. I guess I will keep going with this, and one thing I am going to do after I'm satisfied with the color, actually I think that's good for now, is I'm going to take some kind of a rag, an old sock or something, an old piece of t-shirt. I'm going to rub this because from what I've seen, since this is just the regular dye and not the pro dye, this is more likely to rub off. So I'm going to, like I said, take a rag or something and just almost like buff this, but I'm just going to rub it to see if any of this color will come off before I put it on the gun, and, well, I guess before I apply finish to this and then put it on the gun. So you can see here, this spot is where I've been rubbing on the smooth part of this leather, and to me it almost seemed like as this dried there was almost a almost like a film or kind of a dusty layer on the top of this after it dried, and that seems to be what is coming off mostly, which I guess the more I rub it, it is hopefully you can see that. You can see another dark spot there, so I guess take that as a warning. Like I said, I've never used the pro dye, but I hear the pro dye is a lot less prone to rubbing off like that. So if you use just the regular Phoebing's leather dye, it will rub off. So there you go. Alrighty, now I believe we're ready for about the last step. Reckon this thing looks pretty okay. I mean, it's a little uneven here and there, but I never claimed to be a professional. So, and I think it'll match the rest of the gun. The gun's not perfect. It's an old single shot, so I think it'll look alright. So now, what I'm going to do is, I like to use this neat's foot oil on any leather projects that are going to be outside, basically. I like to use this on holsters and slings, stuff like that. So this is supposed to more or less waterproof your leather. So I just put a little bit in a plastic cup, again with the foam brushes, and just brush it on. And with this stuff, all you do is just brush it on and let it soak in, and eventually it will quit soaking in, and then you just wipe off the excess and you're good to go, basically. Well, there it is. It's certainly not perfect. I misjudged it a little bit because it fit really good around the edges, but then I slicked the edges of the leather and it kind of pushed this back piece of leather, it kind of pushed the corner, which I should have known it was going to do, kind of pushed it back, and now there's just a little bit of space around the edges, especially here at the bottom. But it sure beats not having anything on there at all. So maybe I'll redo it one of these days, maybe I won't, I don't know, but I think it looks good for now. You know, and at a distance you can't really tell that it's not supposed to be there. Alright, so that's it for this one. Hopefully this doesn't turn out to be too long of a video. I tried to keep it short, to the point, because I know most people's attention spans aren't very long. In this project there really wasn't too much need to go into detail. It's pretty simple. So that's going to be it for this one. Like I said, I think it turned out pretty decent. You know, if I can get, there we go. Tried to get over here where the light's not so bright. But yeah, there's the gun. Oh my gosh, in its entirety. So I am just about ready to basically do the final video on this gun. This was supposed to be my deer gun last year, but I didn't get it finished in time. But yeah, like I said, that's it for this one. If you made it through this whole thing and listened to my rambling, thank you. I appreciate it. If you want to subscribe, I'd appreciate that. You want to give the video a like, if you want to share it with your friends, whatever. If you do subscribe and you want to see future videos, make sure you click the bell icon that pops up after you click subscribe, because apparently otherwise YouTube just will not show you or tell you when I upload, and the same goes for anybody. So it is what it is, I guess. So I guess until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. See ya.